My name is Hattie Adams, 35 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I was a senior accountant at Paramount Financial Services. I loved my job for 7 years until I questioned some numbers in accounts managed by my boss, Robert Sullivan's daughter, Madison. The next day, I found myself escorted out of the building, clutching a cardboard box of family photos and my degree. Then yesterday, I received an unexpected call from an external auditor. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button, because trust me, corporate cover-ups always leave a paper trail. After graduating from the University of Michigan with my accounting degree and passing my CPA exam with flying colors, I spent 5 years building my reputation at a mid-size firm in Chicago. I worked 60-hour weeks, took on the toughest clients, and established myself as someone who could handle complex financial situations with precision and integrity. When the opportunity to interview at Paramount Financial Services came up, I nearly declined because it seemed out of reach. Paramount was the gold standard in our industry, managing portfolios for some of the wealthiest individuals and most successful businesses in the Midwest. The Paramount offices occupied 3 floors of a gleaming downtown high-rise, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The reception area alone, with its marble floors and modern art, communicated success and attention to detail. Walking in for my interview, I felt both intimidated and exhilarated. This was the big leagues. Against all odds, I got the job. My new boss, Robert Sullivan, was a legend in financial services. He had built Paramount from the ground up over 20 years, and his reputation for excellence was unmatched. At 48, Robert had the confidence of someone who knew his worth, but lacked the arrogance that often accompanies success. He took me under his wing from day one, introducing me to key clients and making me feel valued. "Hattie, your attention to detail is exactly what we need here," he told me during my first performance review. "The Sullivan name is on this company, and I only hire people who uphold that standard." My colleagues were competitive but collegial. We pushed each other to excel while maintaining a supportive environment. I particularly connected with Amber Rodriguez, another senior accountant who had been with the company for 8 years. We often stayed late together, ordering takeout and working through complex client problems. She became not just a colleague but a true friend. My responsibilities grew quickly. Within 3 years, I was managing accounts worth millions of dollars for some of Paramount's most prestigious clients. I developed a reputation for catching discrepancies that others missed, and for presenting financial information in ways clients could easily understand. My client retention rate was 100%, something Robert frequently highlighted at company meetings. I won the company's Excellence in Financial Services Award 2 years running and received glowing performance reviews. My salary increased substantially, and I finally bought the downtown condo I had been dreaming of. I felt secure in my position and optimistic about my future with Paramount. Robert even hinted that I was on track for a directorship within the next few years. Then, Madison Sullivan joined the company. At 24, Madison was fresh out of college with a business degree from Northwestern, but no specialized accounting training or certification. She was Robert's only child, and it was clear from the beginning that she was being groomed to eventually take over the family business. The problem was not her ambition, which I respected, but her lack of qualifications and experience for the role she was given. "Hattie, I would like you to show Madison the ropes," Robert said, his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "She could learn a lot from someone with your expertise." Madison was striking with her father's confident blue eyes and an easy charm that clients responded to immediately. She was always impeccably dressed in designer outfits that made even our business formal environment look understated. Initially, our interactions were pleasant, if somewhat superficial. "Dad says, you are the best accountant here," she told me during our first lunch together. "I hope I can learn quickly and not be a burden." I assured her that I was happy to help, and spent the next few weeks showing her our systems, introducing her to clients, and explaining our procedures. She was attentive and asked good questions, but I noticed she rarely took notes and often seemed more interested in the relationships with clients than the technical aspects of our work. Despite my concerns, I remained optimistic. Everyone starts somewhere, and with proper mentoring, Madison could develop the skills she needed. I had invested too much in my career at Paramount to worry about office politics. I believed my position was secure, based on my performance and relationship with Robert. "Madison is fitting in. Well, do not you think?" Robert asked me about a month after she started. "She has a natural way with clients," I replied diplomatically. She just needs more technical experience, which will come with time. He nodded, seemingly pleased with my assessment. I thought we were on the same page about his daughter's development needs. I could not have been more wrong. The first red flag appeared about 2 months after Madison joined Paramount. While reviewing some client statements before they went out, I noticed several calculation errors in accounts Madison had been working on. Nothing catastrophic, but definitely concerning for a firm of our caliber. One client's quarterly dividend had been miscalculated by several $1,000s, and another's tax withholding percentage was incorrect. Rather than making a big deal about it, I quietly corrected the errors and made a note to walk Madison through the proper procedures again. Everyone makes mistakes when learning something new, and I wanted to be supportive. Madison, do you have a minute to go over these statements? I asked the next morning, keeping my tone light and friendly. Can it wait? I have a lunch with the Harrington client in an hour, and I need to prepare, she replied, barely looking up from her phone. This is actually about the Harrington account. There were a few numbers that needed adjusting before the statement went out. Her head snapped up a flash of something like panic crossing her face before her expression smoothed. What kind of adjustments? I explained the errors as tactfully as possible, framing them as learning opportunities rather than mistakes. Madison listened, her smile never reaching her eyes. Thanks for catching that, Hattie. Guess I still have a lot to learn, she said with a tight laugh. But you know, these minor details are why we have a review process, right? I noticed she did not take any notes or ask questions about how to avoid similar errors in the future. This pattern continued over the next few weeks. I would find errors, correct them, try to discuss them with Madison, and receive polite but dismissive responses. Meanwhile, I was staying later and later to fix issues before they reached clients, or worse, Robert's desk. Amber noticed my increasing workload. You cannot keep covering for her, Hattie, she warned during one of our late nights. You are doing your job and hers. I know, but she is still learning, and she is the boss's daughter. Exactly, which means this situation is complicated. Just be careful. The situation grew more troubling when Madison began taking credit for my work. During a team presentation on tax optimization strategies, she presented an analysis I had prepared as if it were her own. When I raised an eyebrow, she smoothly added, Hattie provided some of the background data, of course. After the meeting, I tried to address it directly. Madison, I was surprised when you presented my analysis without mentioning we had worked on it together. Her expression hardened for a moment before she laughed lightly. Oh, Hattie, do not be so sensitive about credit. We are all on the same team here. Besides, I made several adjustments to your initial numbers. She had not. The presentation was identical to what I had prepared, but arguing would only make me look petty. As I returned to my office, I overheard Madison speaking to her father in his office, the door not quite closed. Dad, I am trying my best, but Hattie is so controlling. She micromanages everything I do like she does not trust me. Is she giving you a hard time? Robert's voice was concerned in a way I had never heard directed at any other employee's complaints. No, nothing like that. She is just very particular, and sometimes I feel like she resents having to train me. My stomach dropped. This was a complete mischaracterization of our interactions. But how could I defend myself against accusations I was not supposed to have heard? Robert's demeanor toward me shifted subtly after that conversation. He was still professional, but the warmth had diminished. He questioned my decisions more frequently, and seemed to find fault with aspects of my work that had previously earned praise. During a team lunch the following week, Madison regaled the table with stories about a complex tax strategy she had supposedly developed for a client. It was in fact a standard approach we used regularly, nothing innovative about it, but the junior staff members were clearly impressed, and Robert beamed with pride. I noticed other concerning behaviors too. Madison frequently bypassed standard review protocols, sending work directly to her father for approval. She was given access to high-level client meetings that other accountants with her experience would never be invited to, and increasingly I found myself excluded from discussions about accounts I had managed for years. The most alarming incident came when I was preparing for the quarterly review with Westbrook Industries, one of our largest corporate clients. I had managed their account since joining Paramount, and had developed a strong relationship with their CFO. I will be taking the Westbrook meeting, Robert informed me the day before the scheduled review. Oh, I have already prepared all the materials, I said, surprised. Would you like me to brief you? That will not be necessary. Madison has been working with them on some new strategies, and we think it makes sense for us to handle this one. Madison had never worked on the Westbrook account, at least not officially. I felt a chill run down my spine, but maintained my professional demeanor. Of course, the presentation materials are in the shared folder. Let me know if you need anything else. After they left for the meeting, I checked the system logs and discovered Madison had accessed the Westbrook files multiple times over the previous 2 weeks without mentioning it to me. When I reviewed the presentation they took to the meeting, I found several projections that did not align with my analyses. I confided my concerns to Amber over coffee the next day. This feels wrong, Amber. She is making changes to my work without consulting me, and now they are meeting with my clients without me present. Amber glanced around the coffee shop before responding quietly. The word around the office is that Robert is fast-tracking Madison for leadership. Some people think she will be made a department head by the end of the year. That is insane. She has been here less than 6 months. She does not even have her CPA. Since when does merit matter more than nepotism? Amber sighed. Just be careful, Hattie. Robert would choose his daughter over any employee, no matter how valuable. A week later, I discovered a concerning error in the quarterly projections for Westbrook Industries. Madison had overstated expected returns by nearly 15%, creating unrealistic expectations. The client would certainly question in 3 months when the actual numbers came in. I debated how to handle it. Reporting it directly to Robert seemed risky given his recent coolness toward me. Confronting Madison might lead to another accusation that I was undermining her. But ignoring it could harm the client and ultimately the firm. I decided to take the most diplomatic approach possible. Madison, I noticed something in the Westbrook projections that might need a second look, I said, stopping by her office with the relevant documents. The Q3 forecast might be a bit optimistic based on the historical performance. She barely glanced at the papers. I discussed those numbers with Dad. He signed off on them. I understand, but I have worked with Westbrook for years and their business has clear seasonal patterns. These projections do not reflect that. Are you saying my father does not know what he is doing? Her tone was icy. Not at all. I just thought you might want to review these specific calculations before the client raises questions. Thank you for your input, Hattie, she said dismissively. I will take it under advisement. The next day, Robert called me into his office. His expression was stern as I took a seat across from his imposing desk. Madison tells me you are questioning her work on the Westbrook account. I just noticed some projections that seemed inconsistent with their historical performance and thought it worth reviewing, I explained calmly. Madison and I have discussed a new approach for Westbrook. Their business is evolving and our strategies need to evolve with them. Of course, I simply wanted to ensure we were providing accurate information. Hattie. Robert leaned forward, his tone shifting from professional to personal. I have noticed you seem resistant to working with Madison. Is there a problem I should be aware of? The accusation caught me off guard. Not at all, Robert. I have been trying my best to support her development. Good. Because teamwork is essential at Paramount. No one person is bigger than the team, not even someone with your track record. The warning was clear. I left his office with a knot in my stomach that would become my constant companion in the weeks ahead. The Westbrook situation was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, while preparing for tax season, I discovered a major discrepancy in Madison's handling of the Westbrook account. She had miscategorized a $250,000 expense which would have significant tax implications if not corrected. Worse, when I dug deeper, I found evidence suggesting she had attempted to distribute the error across multiple expense categories to make it less noticeable. This was no longer a simple mistake. It looked deliberate, and it violated both company policy and accounting ethics. I took screenshots and printed relevant documents, placing them in a folder in my desk drawer. Something told me I might need evidence later. I called Amber that evening from my condo too, worried to discuss it at the office. This sounds serious, Hattie, she said after I explained the situation. And you are not the only one noticing issues with Madison's work. Eleanor in tax compliance has flagged several of her filings for review. Has Eleanor talked to Robert about it? She tried. He told her to direct any concerns to him personally from now on, not to document them in the system. That was a major red flag. Our firm's protocols required all compliance concerns to be logged in our secure system for audit purposes. The external auditors are scheduled next month, I reminded her. These discrepancies will be found. Unless they are fixed before then, or the audit is somehow limited in scope. I could not imagine Robert would risk the firm's reputation by interfering with an audit. But then again, I could not have imagined many of the things that had happened over the past few months. That night, I researched our company's policies and my professional obligations as a CPA. The code of ethics was clear. I had a duty to report significant errors and potential fraud. But the policies assumed a normal corporate structure, where the person making mistakes was not the daughter of the CEO. After 2 sleepless nights, I decided I needed to make one more attempt to address this directly with Robert. I scheduled a meeting with him, preparing my evidence carefully to present the facts without directly accusing Madison of deliberate misconduct. Robert was distracted when I entered his office, barely looking up from his computer. "Make it quick, Hattie. I have a board meeting in 30 minutes. I have found some serious discrepancies in the Westbrook account that need immediate attention." I began sliding a folder across his desk. "There appears to be a miscategorized expense of $250,000 that affects their tax liability." Robert glanced at the documents, his expression unreadable, and there are indications that the error was distributed across multiple categories. It does not appear accidental. "Are you accusing someone of fraud, Hattie?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "I am not making accusations. I am fulfilling my professional obligation to report significant errors, especially with the external audit approaching. These are minor bookkeeping issues that we will handle internally. The audit is a formality for a company with our track record. With respect, Robert, a $250,000 tax discrepancy is not minor." He closed the folder and pushed it back toward me. "I appreciate your diligence, but I think you are overstepping. Focus on your own work and leave the Westbrook account alone. I will handle any necessary adjustments. The account is assigned to me. It has been since I joined Paramount. Assignments change. Effective immediately, Madison will be taking over Westbrook and your other top-tier clients. You could use a reduced workload given your apparent stress levels lately." The dismissal was clear. I left his office feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. 7 years of impeccable work, and suddenly I was being sidelined because I had found errors that no one wanted to acknowledge. The next day, I received an email outlining my reassigned client list. All my major accounts had been transferred to Madison or other senior accountants. I was left with smaller clients and administrative tasks that could have been handled by a junior associate. Madison smiled smugly when she passed my office that afternoon. "Dad thinks you have been taking on too much, Hattie. We would not want you burning out." I maintained my professionalism despite the burning humiliation. "I am sure you will take good care of the clients." "Of course I will. They are in much better hands now." The office dynamic shifted palpably after that. Colleagues who had previously sought my advice now avoided eye contact in the hallways. Lunch invitations stopped. Only Amber maintained our friendship, though even she was careful about being seen with me too often. "People are saying you tried to throw Madison under the bus," she whispered during a rare coffee break together. "Robert has been telling the leadership team you are resentful about her rapid advancement." "That is absurd. I have documented evidence of serious errors." "Evidence does not always matter when you are going against the boss's daughter, Hattie. Be careful what you put in writing or say to others. This is getting ugly." She was right. Later that week, I overheard 2 colleagues discussing me in the break room. "Apparently, she cannot accept that Madison is more innovative," one said. "Classic case of someone who cannot adapt to changes." "Robert says she has become difficult to work with," the other replied. "Too rigid about processes." I wanted to defend myself, but knew it would only make things worse. Instead, I focused on documenting everything. When I discovered altered timestamps on financial records for the Westbrook account suggesting documents had been backdated, I added it to my growing file of evidence. During a department meeting, Madison presented the very tax strategy I had developed months earlier as her own innovative approach. When our eyes met across the conference table, I saw not embarrassment but challenge. She was daring me to contradict her. After the meeting, she cornered me in the hallway. "You know, Hattie, loyalty is really important in family businesses." "I am loyal to ethical accounting practices and our clients," I replied evenly. That is your problem. You do not understand how things really work. My father built this company, and he decides what practices we follow. The SEC and FASB might disagree with that assessment. Her eyes narrowed. Be careful, Hattie. People who make trouble do not last long here. It was not a subtle threat, but it strengthened my resolve. I might lose my job, but I would not compromise my professional integrity. 3 days later, Robert called an all-hands meeting to announce that Deloitte would be conducting our external audit beginning in 2 weeks. I watched Madison's face pale slightly at the news. This is a routine audit that we undergo every year. Robert assured the team, his confident smile, not quite reaching his eyes. But I expect everyone to be fully prepared and cooperative. Madison will be coordinating our response team. Putting Madison in charge of audit preparation was like asking the fox to guard the henhouse. I glanced at Amber, whose slight headshake told me she was thinking the same thing. The office became a flurry of activity as everyone prepared for the auditors. Late-night work sessions became the norm, with food delivered and extra staff brought in to organize documentation. Through it all, I continued performing my reduced duties while keeping careful track of developments. One evening, working late, I discovered that the Westbrook account errors remained unfixed. In fact, new discrepancies had appeared in 2 more major accounts, Harrison Global and TechVision Partners. The combined total of questionable entries now exceeded $1 million. Amber found me staring at my computer screen, trying to make sense of the numbers. You look like you have seen a ghost, she said, closing my office door behind her. Worse. I have found more problems, bigger ones, and the audit is in 11 days. She lowered her voice. Hattie, you need to know something. Madison has been telling people that you made these errors before she took over the accounts. She is setting you up to take the fall if the auditors find problems. My blood ran cold. She is blaming me. There is a documented trail of who made these entries. Documentation can be altered, and Robert controls the system access. This was beyond office politics now. This was potentially criminal. I needed to protect myself and fulfill my professional obligations. That night, I compiled a comprehensive report detailing all the discrepancies I had found, complete with screenshots, system logs, and timestamps. I included a timeline of my attempts to address these issues and the responses I had received. The next morning, I requested a meeting with Robert and asked that someone from HR be present. What is this about Hattie? Lisa from HR asked when I arrived at the conference room. I need to discuss some serious compliance concerns before the audit, I explained. Robert arrived, his expression thunderous. This better be important. I have back-to-back meetings all day. It is about the audit and some significant issues that need to be addressed, I began. I have compiled a report of financial discrepancies that the auditors will certainly question. Let me see this report, Robert demanded, snatching the folder from my hands. As he flipped through the pages, his face darkened. This is a witch hunt against my daughter. It is documentation of actual errors in our financial records, errors that must be corrected before the audit. These are complex accounts with nuanced treatments that you clearly do not understand. He dismissed, though I could see the concern behind his anger. I have managed these accounts for years, Robert. I understand them perfectly. He slammed the folder down. Lisa, would you please call Madison to join us? She should hear these accusations directly. When Madison arrived, her father handed her my report. She flipped through it, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. This is how you repay my father for giving you a chance. By trying to sabotage me, she demanded, voice trembling with what sounded like rehearsed emotion. I am not sabotaging anyone. I am doing my job by reporting serious errors. Errors you likely created before handing these accounts over to me. Madison accused, tears welling in her eyes. I have been working day and night trying to straighten out the mess you left. That is demonstrably false. The timestamps and system logs show when these changes were made and by whom. Timestamps that you as a senior system user could have manipulated, Robert interjected. I could not believe what I was hearing. Are you accusing me of fraud to cover up mistakes in your daughter's work? I am not accusing anyone of anything, Robert said coldly, but I am questioning your motives and your judgment. My motive is to uphold the ethical standards of our profession and protect this firm. By creating a hostile work environment for my daughter, By undermining her at every turn, Robert's voice rose with each question. Madison has told me how you have treated her, constantly criticizing and second-guessing her decisions. That is not true, I protested, looking to Lisa for support. But the HR representative was studiously avoiding eye contact, clearly uncomfortable with the family dynamics at play. I have heard enough, Robert declared. Hattie, your services are no longer required at Paramount Financial Services. The words hit me like a physical blow. You are firing me for reporting legitimate financial concerns. I am terminating your employment due to your creation of a hostile work environment and your inability to adapt to organizational changes. Lisa will walk you through the separation agreement, which includes a generous severance package contingent upon a standard non-disclosure agreement. Madison wiped away what appeared to be tears of relief. Robert put his arm around her shoulders protectively. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings, he continued. Company policy requires you to leave the premises immediately. Lisa finally spoke, her voice, professional but strained. I will need you to come with me to my office, Hattie. In a daze, I followed her, aware of the curious and pitying glances from colleagues as a security guard joined us. In her office, Lisa placed a document before me. This separation agreement includes 6 months of severance pay, continued health benefits, and a neutral reference for future employment, she explained mechanically. However, you must sign the non-disclosure agreement prohibiting discussion of any internal company matters. You mean prohibiting me from revealing that I was fired for reporting financial irregularities before an audit? My shock was giving way to anger. I cannot comment on the reasons for termination. The agreement speaks for itself. I will need time to review this with my attorney. Of course, you have 48 hours to sign and return it, or the severance offer will be withdrawn. The security guard stood impassively as I was led to my office to collect my personal items. I was not allowed to take any company documents or access my computer. Everything I had gathered as evidence remained in my desk or on the company servers. Amber caught my eye as I was escorted through the office, her expression a mix of sympathy and fear. Other colleagues quickly looked away, suddenly absorbed in their screens or papers. In the parking garage, I finally broke down, sobbing in my car for nearly an hour before I could compose myself enough to drive home. 7 years of dedication ended with a humiliating escort out of the building, my reputation tarnished by lies, my career in jeopardy. That night, alone in my condo, I stared out at the city lights, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. I had done the right thing, the ethical thing, and it had cost me everything. The first week after my termination was a blur of emotion: anger at the injustice of it all, disbelief that Robert would sacrifice his company's integrity to protect his daughter, fear about my financial future and professional reputation. My parents called daily from Michigan, concerned about my uncharacteristic despondency. Friends invited me out, trying to lift my spirits. But how could I explain what had happened without violating the non-disclosure agreement I was still considering signing? I had a disagreement with management about some accounting practices, became my vague explanation when asked why I had left Paramount so suddenly. Job hunting proved difficult. Though I had not signed the NDA, I was careful in interviews not to speak ill of my former employer. But the gap in my employment history required explanation, and my carefully worded responses seemed to raise red flags. "We will keep your resume on file," became a familiar refrain after interviews that had seemed to go well until the inevitable question about why I had left Paramount. 2 weeks into my unemployment, I received a text from Amber. "They are giving bad references, called you difficult and resistant to supervision. Completely unfair, so sorry." That explained the sudden cooling of interest from potential employers. Robert was not content with firing me. He was actively preventing me from finding new employment. My savings would last a few months, but the mortgage on my condo was substantial. I began considering whether I would need to sell it and move to a cheaper apartment. The injustice burned, but what recourse did I have against someone as powerful as Robert Sullivan? 3 weeks after my termination, I was sitting at my kitchen table reviewing job listings when my phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello, this is Hattie Adams," I answered cautiously. "Miss Adams, my name is Thomas Wade. I am an external auditor with Deloitte, currently conducting the annual audit at Paramount Financial Services." My heart raced. "How can I help you, Mr. Wade?" We have found some concerning discrepancies in several major accounts, particularly Westbrook Industries, Harrison Global, and TechVision Partners. Your name appears as the previous account manager, but the current team has been unable to explain certain inconsistencies in the records. I chose my words carefully. I see. What kind of inconsistencies? Misclassified expenses, inconsistent application of accounting principles, and what appear to be backdated entries. To be frank, the kinds of issues that raise significant red flags in an audit. This was exactly what I had warned Robert about. I am no longer employed by Paramount, Mr. Wade. I am not sure how I can assist with your audit. That is precisely why I am calling you Miss Adams. Your departure immediately before a scheduled audit, combined with these findings, suggests there may be more to this situation. I would like to get your perspective. I took a deep breath. I need to be careful here, Mr. Wade. My separation from Paramount was not amicable, and there are potential legal considerations. I understand your caution. But as a CPA yourself, you are aware of the professional obligations regarding accurate financial reporting. This call is confidential and part of our standard audit procedures when we encounter unexplained discrepancies. He was right. Whatever issues I had with Paramount, I had an ethical obligation to the truth, but I also needed to protect myself. I would like to consult with an attorney before discussing this further, I told him. Could we schedule a time to continue this conversation in a few days? Of course. Please call me at this number when you are ready to talk. That afternoon, I met with Sandra Mitchell, a labor attorney recommended by a friend. I explained the situation in detail, showing her the notes and the few pieces of evidence I had been able to take with me, primarily in the form of emails I had forwarded to my personal account. This is a classic whistleblower situation, Sandra said after listening to my story. If you were terminated for reporting financial irregularities, that is wrongful termination, regardless of what reason they put on paper. But I cannot prove it without the documentation that is still at Paramount. Actually, the audit itself may provide that proof. If the auditors find the same issues you reported before your termination, that substantiates your claims. So you think I should speak with the auditor? Yes, but carefully. Stick to facts you can verify. Do not speculate about motives or make accusations you cannot support with evidence, and definitely do not sign that NDA. It would severely limit your legal options going forward. Armed with legal advice, I called Thomas Wade back and arranged to meet him at a coffee shop several blocks from the Paramount offices. He was younger than I expected, perhaps 30, with intelligent eyes and a serious demeanor. After brief introductions, he got straight to the point. Miss Adams, we have found discrepancies totaling approximately $1.2 million across the 3 accounts I mentioned. The current management has been unable or unwilling to provide satisfactory explanations. I nodded. Before my termination, I identified similar issues and attempted to report them internally. Can you tell me more about that process and the response you received? Over the next hour, I provided a detailed timeline of events, being careful to stick to verifiable facts, just as Sandra had advised. I explained the discovery of the initial errors, my attempts to address them with Madison and Robert, the reassignment of my clients, and finally my termination after formally documenting the issues. Do you have copies of this documentation? He asked. Unfortunately, no. Everything was on company servers or in my desk. I was not permitted to take any company documents when I was escorted out. Thomas made notes throughout our conversation, occasionally asking for clarification on specific transactions or dates. Finally, he sat back with a thoughtful expression. Miss Adams, I want to be transparent with you. What we have found goes beyond simple errors or differences in accounting judgment. There appear to be deliberate attempts to misstate financial positions and obscure transactions. These are issues that may involve regulatory authorities beyond just our audit team. My stomach tightened. Are you saying this could involve the SEC? It is too early to make that determination, but it is a possibility. If intentional financial misrepresentation is established, then yes, regulatory involvement becomes likely. I was afraid of that. I never wanted to harm the company or my former colleagues. I just wanted the errors corrected before they became something worse. You did the right thing professionally, Thomas assured me. The issues would have been discovered eventually with or without your report. Financial irregularities always leave a trail. As our meeting concluded, Thomas thanked me for my cooperation and gave me his card. We may have additional questions as the audit progresses. And Miss Adams, you might want to keep your attorney informed of these developments. Your termination under these circumstances raises serious concerns from an employment law perspective. That evening, Sandra called with unexpected news. Paramount's legal team reached out to me. They want to discuss your separation package. Why now, after 3 weeks? My guess, the audit is not going well for them, and they are trying to contain the damage. This gives us leverage we did not have before. For the first time since my termination, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was coming to light, and with it, the possibility of vindication. The next day, Amber texted again. Auditors everywhere. Management in closed-door meetings all day. What did you do? I told the truth, I replied simply. 3 days later, a small article appeared in the Chicago Business Journal, Paramount Financial Services under scrutiny for potential financial irregularities. The piece was vague, mentioning only that sources close to the company reported that external auditors had flagged significant concerns during a routine annual audit. Paramount's official statement claimed it was cooperating fully and expected the matter to be resolved quickly. But within the financial community, rumors spread faster than official statements. Former colleagues began reaching out cautiously at first, then more openly as the story gained traction. Is it true that Madison Sullivan was cooking the books? Asked Eleanor from tax compliance in a hushed phone call. I cannot discuss specifics. I replied, mindful of potential legal implications, but I think the audit findings speak for themselves. The office is in chaos, she confided. Robert has the leadership team working around the clock reviewing records. Madison has not been seen for days. Supposedly, she is on administrative leave while they sort things out. More former colleagues called with similar reports. The audit had expanded in scope with more Deloitte staff brought in. Clients were asking questions. The board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Amber provided the most detailed updates. They are going through every account Madison touched, she told me during a clandestine lunch. And get this, Robert has been summoned to multiple meetings with the board. He looks terrible, like he has not slept in days. What about the rest of the staff? Scared, confused. Some are angry that Robert and Madison put everyone's reputations at risk. A few have already updated their resumes. 1 week after my meeting with Thomas Wade, I received a call from Paramount's general counsel, requesting a meeting at their offices to discuss my separation from the company. Sandra advised against meeting on their territory. They come to us, not the other way around, she insisted. And we meet at my office, not yours. Keep the home field advantage. 2 days later, I sat beside Sandra as Paramount's legal team, led by General Counsel William Barnes, presented their offer. The severance package had doubled to 1 year's salary, and the non-disclosure agreement had been modified significantly. Paramount acknowledges that Miss Adams raised legitimate compliance concerns during her employment, Barnes stated, choosing his words carefully. The company regrets any misunderstanding regarding the nature and intent of those communications. Misunderstanding, Sandra replied with professional skepticism. My client was terminated for doing exactly what her professional ethics required her to do. That is not a misunderstanding, it is wrongful termination. Barnes shifted uncomfortably. We are prepared to offer a generous settlement that reflects the company's desire to resolve this matter amicably. Does this settlement include an admission that my client was wrongfully terminated for reporting financial irregularities? We cannot go that far. However, we are willing to provide a positive reference and formally withdraw any negative comments made to potential employers. And the non-disclosure agreement. We still require confidentiality regarding specific client information and proprietary processes. However, we have removed the clauses prohibiting discussion of general workplace experiences. It was a substantial concession, but still not enough. My client will not sign any agreement that prevents her from truthfully answering questions from regulatory authorities or in legal proceedings, Sandra stated firmly. The negotiation continued for nearly 2 hours, with both sides making concessions. By the end, we had reached an agreement that protected my right to speak truthfully, if formally questioned, while providing financial stability as I rebuilt my career. As the Paramount lawyers were leaving, Barnes paused. For what it is worth, Miss Adams, there are many at Paramount who respect your integrity. This situation has been difficult for everyone involved. The validation, however, reluctant, meant something, but it was nothing compared to what happened the next day. I received a call from James Peterson, managing partner at Integrity Financial Partners, a boutique firm with an impeccable reputation. Hattie, I have heard some interesting things about your departure from Paramount. I would like to discuss a potential position with our firm. During the interview, James was refreshingly direct. Let me be clear. I know what happened at Paramount. The financial community is small, and word gets around. Your stance took courage, and that is exactly the kind of integrity we value here. 3 days later, he offered me a senior position with a salary 15% higher than I had been making at Paramount, along with a clear path to partnership within 2 years. Meanwhile, the situation at Paramount continued to unravel. The board placed Robert on administrative leave pending a full investigation. The SEC announced they were reviewing the audit findings. Most significantly, an internal review revealed that Madison had never completed her business degree as claimed on her resume. They found a pattern of embellishment and deception, Amber told me during one of our now regular dinners. Robert had altered performance reviews, bypassed standard hiring protocols, and overridden compliance flags to protect Madison. It is a complete mess. 3 weeks after I accepted the position at Integrity, the Chicago Business Journal published a follow-up article, Leadership Shakeup at Paramount Financial Services Amid Regulatory Review. Both Robert and Madison Sullivan had been terminated. The board had appointed an interim CEO and promised sweeping changes to governance and compliance procedures. My first day at Integrity felt like a fresh start. My new colleagues welcomed me warmly, and the firm's commitment to ethical practices was evident in everything from their client selection process to their internal review procedures. James introduced me to the team with words that healed something broken inside me. Hattie Adams joins us with an outstanding reputation for technical excellence and unwavering integrity. We are fortunate to have her. That evening, Amber called with news of her own. I just accepted a position at Morningstar. I cannot work at Paramount anymore, not after everything that happened. Congratulations, that is a great move. There is something else you should know. Several clients have asked specifically about you. When they heard what happened, they wanted to know where you went. I might have mentioned Integrity to a few of them. I laughed for what felt like the first time in months. Are you sending me clients already? Consider it karma. You stood up for what was right, and now good things are coming back to you. 6 months later, I stood in my office at Integrity Financial Partners, looking out at the Chicago skyline. The view was different from my window at Paramount, but in many ways it was better. Not just the physical space, but what it represented. My new role as Senior Director of Client Services came with more responsibility and autonomy than I had ever experienced at Paramount. I managed a team of 6 accountants, mentoring them with the kind of ethical guidance I wished Madison had received. The numbers always tell a story. I often told my team. Our job is to make sure it is an honest one. My financial situation had stabilized. The settlement from Paramount, combined with my increased salary, allowed me to keep my condo and even start rebuilding my savings. More importantly, I had regained my professional confidence. The therapeutic journey had been as important as the professional one. Weekly sessions with a counselor helped me process the trauma of betrayal and public humiliation. I learned to separate my self-worth from the actions of others, and to recognize that standing for integrity was never the wrong choice, regardless of the temporary consequences. The legal settlement had been finalized 3 months after my termination. Paramount acknowledged wrongful termination without explicitly admitting it was due to whistleblowing. I was not required to sign an NDA, preventing me from discussing the general circumstances of my departure. The financial compensation, while not life-changing, provided a cushion that eased the transition to my new position. News about Paramount continued to circulate in financial circles. The board had hired a respected industry veteran as the new CEO with a mandate to rebuild the firm's reputation. New compliance systems were being implemented, and the company had entered into a consent decree, with regulatory authorities requiring enhanced oversight for the next 3 years. Several former colleagues had moved on to other firms, unwilling to weather the reputational damage. Others stayed committed to rebuilding what had once been a respected institution. At an industry conference in September, I unexpectedly ran into several former Paramount colleagues, including Eleanor from tax compliance. The initial awkwardness quickly gave way to genuine warmth. "You were right all along," Eleanor said over coffee. We all knew something was wrong, but no one had the courage to do what you did. I did not feel very courageous at the time, I admitted, just terrified and alone. Well, you have quite a reputation now. When ethical standards come up in meetings, people actually ask, "What would Hattie do?" I laughed. I am not sure I want to be a compliance meme. Better that than the alternative. Robert and Madison are industry cautionary tales now. Amber and I maintained our friendship, which evolved into a professional relationship when she joined Integrity 3 months after I did. James had been impressed by her resume and my enthusiastic recommendation. "We make a good team," she said, as we worked late one evening on a complex client presentation, just like the old days but without the toxicity. "And without having to cover for anyone's mistakes," I added. "Have you heard the latest about Madison? Apparently she is going back to school to finally finish her degree. Good for her. Everyone deserves a second chance to do things right." The experience had taught me valuable lessons about workplace dynamics and my own resilience. I became more attuned to early warning signs of toxic leadership. I learned to document concerns contemporaneously and to build networks of support. Most importantly, I discovered my own capacity to rebuild after professional devastation. I began mentoring younger accountants, particularly women navigating complex office politics. Without sharing specific details about Paramount, I offered guidance on maintaining professional integrity while managing difficult situations. "Your reputation is built over years, but can be damaged in a day," I would tell them. "Protect it fiercely, even when doing so is painful." My experience at Paramount had unexpected industry impacts. Several firms instituted enhanced nepotism policies and strengthened their whistleblower protections. Professional organizations used anonymized versions of the case in ethics training. The personal growth was equally significant. I developed stronger boundaries between my professional and personal identity. I became more assertive in expressing concerns and more confident in my professional judgment. The experience that had nearly broken me ultimately made me stronger and wiser. 1 year after my termination, I received an unexpected email from Thomas Wade, the Deloitte auditor. "Thought you might like to know that the procedures we implemented following the Paramount audit have been adopted as best practices within our firm. Your willingness to speak up made a difference beyond one company." As difficult as the experience had been, I found myself strangely grateful for it. Without that crisis, I might have remained at Paramount indefinitely loyal to a company that did not deserve my loyalty. I might never have discovered my own strength or found my way to a truly supportive professional environment. The journey had taught me that professional integrity is not negotiable, that standing alone for what is right is better than being accepted for what is wrong. That truth, however painful, initially ultimately leads to freedom. So, what about you? Have you ever had to choose between what is easy and what is right in your professional life? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments. If you found value in my experience, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for what is right does pay off in the end, even when the path is difficult. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your integrity is your most valuable professional asset.